Hello and welcome to drawing vlog number 3. You can see that I have drawn a little robot here, and if you've seen the title of this video, you'll know what I'm already talking about. It is called The Sad Truth. The sad truth about robots. And what is the sad truth about robots? Well, basically the robot that you see here with the square-shaped head and the pincer-shaped hands and the buttons on the chest. Unfortunately, I think that in our day and age, we skipped this entire generation of robots. By the time we finally had artificial intelligence good enough to create robots, we already had robots that looked like humans, and they didn't have mouths that looked like this. We've jumped straight to the era where human robots look exactly like humans. For some reason, especially in Japan, they've been creating robots that look just like humans. And I guess I don't know what the reasoning is for that. Maybe the idea of having a boxy shaped robot wouldn't be as nice as actually having a real human, because we don't want robots per se. We never wanted the mecha shape of robots. What we really wanted was personal assistants that were just humans. And we don't want to turn real humans into slaves. We want to turn robots into slaves. So this is what I mean. And of course I don't actually mean slaves. I mean personal assistants. So things like, Siri on your iPhone, that has no shape. But what I'd like to do today is practice drawing robots. And what are robots? Well, this is what I want to discuss, because if you were to draw a robot with great big square-shaped heads and rectangular mouths and, I don't know, antennas coming out of them, unfortunately, even if you like this aesthetic, it's almost impossible these days to draw a robot that looks like this without being old-fashioned. So what can we do to draw, I don't know, modern robots, or at least, believable robots? And I think something that is most likely when you see an anime, I'm going to erase this, when you see an anime or manga, which is based on the ideas of androids, is that actually you can afford to start with a human base. So just like I normally do when I draw human characters, I'm going to draw my circle and my oval and go in there and just draw what I think a general human shape looks like. But I think to get really modern style robots, you could, I think an actual modern style robot would be imperceptible. It would be indistinguishable from an actual human being. But just for the sake of drawing a comic where maybe you're drawing it in a time period where they haven't really reached that status yet, you could afford to, I don't know, you could do the eyes the way that you would normally do the eyes, but instead of the head, I don't know, give them a bald head maybe with these lines. And I think this is where it's going to be really important. Essentially, when you draw robots, you move into drawing mechanical things. So even though you might draw this like a regular human arm, like so, you might just add little mechanical features. And mechanical features there are a number of tips, I think, that can help you draw mechanical features, like these surface lines like this. So I haven't actually changed the shape of the arm, but I've added these lines here, which show that, I don't know, it's either a plate that can be opened or a plate that can be slid in either direction to open, or maybe it's transparent. It could be a transparent plate so that you can see all the inner I can't zoom in any further. You can see all the inner workings, things like that. I think it depends on what type of comic or image that you want to draw. But I think if you're going to go ahead, and I'm really, really keen on the idea of drawing my next comic with androids and robots in it, and I think it would be nice to use the aesthetic of humanoid, because essentially, as we've seen, humans don't really want mechanical looking robots in their lives. We want these human looking robots, but we'd like them to be distinguishable from humans so that we don't, I don't know, feel uneasy about having these humans in our lives. Kind of, we're never even really sure if they're going to be spying on us or not. So for example, more things that you can add, and this comes from a mechanical book that I was reading. I don't even remember the title. If I remember, I'll put it in the comments or something. How do you turn this flat thing into a mechanical thing? And here are some tips. You can draw a little line here, and you can draw a little line here, and that will suggest some depth. Maybe this is not just a flat piece of, I don't know, to distinguish it from a piece of fabric. It helps to add this depth here. Maybe because if you, by just simply adding this line here, insinuate that there might be a shadow, and you don't even have to draw the shadow. In fact, usually you would draw it like this, a line here and a line here, and that would be enough to make this object look a little more mechanical. And other things that you can do, for example, are add bolts. A simple circle. This is one of the best examples I've seen so far, is when you have a nice circle, which could be anything. This could be a sphere, or it could be a window, or it could be a button that you press. And here's something you can do. Okay, let's say that this is a button and it's bending outward. You could do this to the object, like here. All you do is you add an extra line around the inside of the circle, and you show that the bottom part has shadow. And by doing this, you can create a circular shape which is actually coming up from the surface. It may not look very obvious now because I've drawn it in a slightly rushed way, but let's say that we were going to attach this to this person. So perhaps they, I don't know, how can we turn this humanoid person into someone with buttons? Let's say that this person has a button right here in the middle. I don't know why you would press this button or what this button would do. Maybe it's a refrigerator human. Well, I'm sure that we'll have machines in the future for all sorts of things. But let's say that we've got this button here. You could make it a nice spherical button, or like we've just drawn, you could draw these edges in here. And let's see if we can turn this human into this robot into a robot with a button. And I might draw some old school robots later as well. I don't really specialize in robots, by the way. I'm mostly doing today's vlog as practice for myself. Get my mind open to the idea of new things. And that's an interesting looking button. And the reason I find this particular button really interesting is because you could do the same button but with the opposite pattern. So if you draw it like this, here we go, like that, and then you have the underside. If you have this side light and the top side dark, so I'll just shade it in like so. I've really got to disable that feature. It's quite infuriating. I'll just color this in, and what should happen is it should look like it's impressed in like an indentation. Like the reason, it's hard to explain, but if this were 3D, it would actually be going inside. You would see it come around like this. There would be a shadow on the inside, and then light on the bottom. This is all assuming that the light is coming from the top, by the way. Obviously, all of this is reversed. If your light source is a flashlight, torch, coming from below. But this is the theory. So you could use little shapes like this to increase the robotness of your characters. Let's give this dude, let's make this a dude, shall we? And give him some hips. And I don't know, something that I like to do is actually not just make them perfectly humanoid, but also give them extra things. I think like stuff that honestly I don't think would actually happen these days, but it's, again, this is kind of retro future. So my aesthetic personally, I think, is somewhere between future, retro, and retro future. It's like, I really don't think that anyone who created a robot in this day and age would have an extra bulging out part like this. But I think it's nice, and it's kind of quirky, and it also shows that you've got a little bit of a retro aesthetic. Oh, I forgot about the buttons. Here is another thing you can do. Say that you've got a square, you can actually add bolts like this. Let's put a bolt here and a bolt here, and all you do is draw a line like this. Right, and you have turned this object, oops, maybe that's too long. You've turned this object into a mechanical looking plate. And as an interesting exercise, you can do this as much as you like with completely random lines. So draw a box like this completely randomly, and then just add random bolts, lines, and this sort of thing until you've created an extra mechanical looking rectangle. Because these are the embellishments that you can now add to your human characters, make them more robotic. So let's do it. Let's do it with this character. Let's deal with the fact that this character has no clothing by masking that fact with these extra lines. In fact, this is not even just for robots. This actually works pretty well for costume design as well. Say that you were having one of these futuristic suits, like Evangelion type suits that people have to wear in order to get into giant robots, robots getting into robots. This could either be an android human, or this could actually be just a normal human in a suit. So I'm just going to make this symmetrical. I think if anything's going around the side like a belt, it ought to be symmetrical. I haven't drawn it very well, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to do there. And you could even put bolts, this is it's a humanoid robot, but there's got to be bits that can actually be taken off, otherwise, you won't be able to perform maintenance on them. So this is my take on what I think. Well, in fact, yeah, there would be shadow here. This is my take on the modern, let's call it modern future retro, shall we? Let's call it modern future retro. And I've kind of changed my mind about having him bald. I think you could have a robot with hair. I think that's fair. But why don't we make it a little sharper? So instead of, what's most likely is that if we made robots today, and they already do, they'd probably put fake hair on it, like legit fake hair, or I don't know, transplanted hair onto it. But I just said I was going to make this more robotic. Well, again, we can add these extra lines and make the hair look a little more robotic. And then, even just for kicks, have random bits. Again, this is all taking so much influence from Evangelion, but you could have random parts sticking out of it. So how about here? I think this is a nice place for an extra piece, and maybe you could come up with an excuse. Here's something that I highly recommend. It's not like this is the only way to do it, but if you come up with a cool design, don't worry about what it's supposed to do. Just design it the way that you want it to look, and then you can create excuses later, like, okay, why is this here? Actually, most robots probably wouldn't have a bit jutting out, but let's create a reason, like antenna must be exposed. Oops, can't spell exposed. Exposed to atmosphere. Perhaps there's a sensor inside it which has to always be in contact with the actual air. Actually, let's make this guy a little bit less cute, shall we? Let's give him a more of a jaw like this. And I think especially the neck, you really do expect to see bolts and that sort of thing on the neck. And in fact, this whole plate section here could be shaded. I might just shade it so it looks more like I don't know, like this part has been replaced, you know? Because it is a robot, and the cheapest way to keep a robot going, you know, instead of throwing them away, would be to replace certain parts. A bit like C-3PO in The Force Awakens. He's had his entire arm replaced with a red version, because I think realistically speaking, that's what would happen with robots. I think probably if we're going for the futuristic style, you're more likely to have... Oh wow, I've really done these hands wrong. You're more likely to have hands that look pretty normal. So let's just give him pretty normal looking hands. I'm not going to waste too much time on the hand. I could worry about that. Essentially, I'm drawing just a regular human hand. And then you need some sort of excuse to not have him completely look naked. So something you can do, I guess, is to, I don't know, what can we do here that would give us an excuse to clothe this robot? Something like, I don't know. I'm really troubled. I have no idea how to clothe this guy. Oh, hang on, I've just done this by accident. Let's have a line coming from here, and then have that line. Ah, this is common, isn't it? I'm sure you've seen this before in clothing, typical anime clothing, but to have the inside part shaded a certain color. And again, this could be also because this is mechanical and it's actually removable. These are all plates. Maybe even these are designable plates. You can buy your robot and replace the inner color of their thighs, because that's how you show that it's yours. I don't know, because maybe everyone has their own color in the future. So this is just something you can do to create robots that look a little more modern. And the reason I call it the sad truth is that, unfortunately, even this robot probably isn't modern enough for current tastes. This is a little bit too retro. Honestly, I think if you were going to draw an anime or manga about an android these days, it's unlikely that you would have anything as obvious as this. You would have to create reasons like was replaced, you know? Otherwise, what other reason do you have to give them, you know, such obviously robotic parts in a world that doesn't really want to see robots? But I've gone completely over time, and because I told myself I'm not going to make these too long, and unfortunately this one has gone even longer than usual. Hang on, why don't we make this guy, let's give him a visor. How about that? That's even more roboty. Let's have it jut out like this. Let's have shadow on the bottom. And I forgot what I was saying, but essentially that is all. That's where I want to end it. This is my quick take on drawing a little android. And the sad truth about robots is that they missed their boat. The ship came, and unfortunately they missed it. Those robots of yesteryear, they will never have their time, because we moved straight on to these humans that are robots in disguise. And I'm not talking about Transformers. I actually just mean humans. And they're disguised as... they're just robots disguised as humans. So there you go. Thanks very much for watching vlog number 3. The sad truth about robots, which is that they've got to be They gotta be kind of humanoid these days, unless you can come up with a good excuse. Or, I think more often than not, if you're gonna see these giant mecha-style robots, you're more likely to see them giant size. Like, the reason they have to be robot-shaped is because it would be too expensive to create a robot that was actually human-shaped and also large. Like an Evangelion-style robot would be too expensive to create. But these blocky-shaped robots, like this one, this is the sort of thing that is cheaper to produce on a large scale. Robot. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that vlog. Time to go, and I will see you next time. Bye.